travelers, my name is Siggi, and welcome to A Human's Guide to Nesval, Episode 1. Welcome to Nesval. So today we are just going to be doing an overview of what Nesval is, going over an overview of one people group, the Dragai, and then we're going to talk about the history of how I created Nesval. So yeah, let's get into it. So Nesval is the name of a world that I created, I think it was like 2014 when I made it. So about 10 years ago, I created Nesval. And at that point in time, it was called Randithopia. It is a world with an archipelago towards the northwest corner and continents in all other directions. It's very similar to Earth, I would say. It's got very different climates in different regions. And yeah, it's basically it's something that I created to kind of escape to with my mind. Sometimes I'll just be like, oh yeah, Nesval, and then I'll just daydream about it. But and that's how most of the details of this world were created, is by me daydreaming or pretending to be in Nesval. So yeah, let's talk about the people groups, what sort of people groups exist there. So there are two main people groups that live in Nesval, and that is the Dragai and the Nenshi. The Dragai are the most fleshed out people that I have in this world. Like, I've written the most about him. I've created the most about them. Specifically the Dragai Gati. There are tribes of Dragai that exist, and the Gati is one of them. I'll get into that a little later, but the Nenshi I will plan on talking about later in the series. The Dragai is going to take up the first bit of the series, I guess. I don't know how long this series is going to be, but we're going to be talking about the Dragai for the first part. Hooray! So, an overview over the Dragai is going to be an overview of the tribes and what they're like, what their subgroupings are, where they live in Nesval. And editing Siggi, I'm asking you to put up a map of Nesval right now. Or if you already have, good job. Anyways, let's start with the Gati. So our lovely Gati tribe of Dragai are the smallest tribe of Dragai. They inhabit the singular island of Siansho, but they are the most politically powerful and the most economically powerful in Randithopia, which is the map that I'm showing right now. Yeah. But they have 3 subgroupings, and they are based on moon phase. There are the Nigati, who are those who are born on the full moon and the new moon. There are the Sol Gati, those who are born on a lunar eclipse, and the Med Gati, who are born in between lunar events. So next we have the Shlivak. They inhabit the most eastern part of Randithopia Major. Their borders are with Harunoshi, the Nenshi territory, and they extend all the way down to the Southern Ocean, which is not displayed on the map, but they are the most spread out tribe of the Dragai. However, they are the most politically weak and economically weak and most underdeveloped tribe of Dragai. And this is mostly because they are so spread out. But yeah, that is basically about the Shli'vak. They have 3 subgroupings as well. They're based on solar events. So there's the Seto Shli'vak, and those are those born on solar eclipses, the Yuku Shli'vak, those born on solstices, and the Machi Shli'vak, who are those born on equinoxes. So now we have the Gondra. The Gondra are the outcasted hybrids of the Dragai. In Dragian mythology, it is rumored that they intermarried with the Nenshi and thus are deemed despicable, and they have been outcasted to the far west, to Sen and Korra, 2 islands, and these two islands house a great deal of people. Political outcasts are there as well, exiled people, prisoners, so it's kind of like a mix of a penal colony and everyone hates you, go live there colony, or whatever. So next we have the Zhou. The Zhou inhabit the western half of Rendithpia Major, as well as some of the central islands in the archipelago. I almost said archipelago. That's weird. And the climate where they live is rainforest and tropical, like tropical-ish. Think of like sparse rainforest and rainforest. And so, since they are very connected to the rainforest, their groupings are based on the rainy and dry season. We have the Kimin-sho, which is for the rainy season, and the Kikinjo for the dry season. Lastly, we have the Ndrese. They inhabit the northern reaches of Rendithpia in Rendithpia Minor, and the central mountains of Rendithpia Major. And they are the dividers between the Zhou and the Shli'vak. Their groupings are based on location. They have one group, which are the Ona Ndrese, which are the southern Ndrese. Those are the ones that inhabit the central part of Rendithpia Major. So they are south of Rendithpia Minor. So that's going to be a wrap on the tribes of Dragai. Now let's go ahead and talk about how I created Nesval and the history of how it developed into what it is today. So to begin with, Nesval started as Rendithopia, a land I created with friends, and it was the basis for kind of like a mix of a roleplay group to a club. And Rendithopia was the land that it was set in. But it was mainly a How to Train Your Dragon fan club where we roleplayed as people mixed with How to Train Your Dragon, dragons. There's also a religious aspect to it where we worshipped the Dragi King. We would just leave offerings to him in random spots of our school campus, and I remember getting in trouble once for that, and that was funny. But yeah, that was how it started. And it evolved into something that I never thought would happen. And today, I'm talking about it with you. I never thought that this would happen the day I created Randothopia with my friends. So, shout out to you guys, friends, who I created Randothopia with. I have no clue where any of you are right now, and I hope you're doing well. So our next era, quote unquote, is the Under One Cloak era. This is when the club was dying down, but I was still fascinated with Randothopia. And at this time, Randothopia was the name of the entire world, not just the Dragian region. Nesval, the name, didn't exist yet, so it was just called Randothopia, which evolved into Randithpia. So Under One Cloak is a story I started writing and never finished, but it was how I started figuring out the world building behind Randithpia, Nesval, Randothopia, whatever you want to call it. And this is when I started fleshing out the war between the Dragi and the Nenshi. The Dragi and the Nenshi, they hate each other. And they don't want anything to do with each other, and sometimes they try to take over each other, and thus that starts wars. It fleshed out the Nigati and Xiansho, and that's what Under One Cloak was mainly about. It took place on Xiansho, talking about Helene and Hishile, two twin sovereigns of Xiansho and of the Gati tribe. And I also introduced Sygos and Nanatai, which are the Dragian and Nenshi gods. There was heavy Scandinavian influence, it was a mini Scandinavian region at that time, and that changed. There's still some Scandinavian influence, but it's not as heavy as it was way back when in 2018 when I wrote Under One Cloak. Also, another thing, the Nenshi were called the Nenchi at that time, Nenxi. But once I updated the Nenshi to become more of an Asian influence, that spelling also changed. So, yeah, that's the Under One Cloak period. So, after maybe 2 years of working on Under One Cloak and being heavily obsessed with it, it died down. Randothopia died. The club died. Everything was dead. And for maybe, I would say a year and a half, I'd kind of just forgotten about it. But then I rediscovered it and was like, hey, I want to work on it. And thus, it was reborn. I changed a bunch of things. I made the Nenshi Asian influenced instead of Scandinavian influenced as well. And then the Dragian culture was more Slavic, Eastern European influence, including their alphabet. One thing I didn't mention earlier was that their alphabet was a runic-based alphabet during the Under One Cloak time and the club time. But now it is a more Slavic, almost Cyrillic style alphabet. And now it is, again, Slavic influence. It still has that hint of Scandinavian. I keep on saying influence, but influence. And this period is also when I started writing Akra, which is another story that I'm writing currently, and it's about Akra, who is a Nenshi stuck in a Dragian land. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to write it because I wanted to explore the difference between the Nenshi and the Dragai and like the cultural difference and stuff like that. So, yeah. Another thing that I did during this time was I reopened the idea of making my own language, and that's where Dagona came from. Dagona is, in fact, the Dragian language, and it uses that alphabet I mentioned earlier, and I'm working on that now, and it's spoken in Akra, and yeah. So that is what I worked on when I rediscovered Randithopia, now called Nesval. So yeah. So that is going to bring us to the end of our first episode. I am stunned, like, how long this took to make. This is my first time making a podcast, and I normally make YouTube videos, which are a little bit easier to make, surprisingly. I don't even know. I'm not gonna ramble on about this, but anyways, thank you so much for listening, or watching if you are watching the video podcast, but thank you nonetheless. And I do have in the description that it updates every Tuesday/Wednesday, but I don't know if I'm gonna keep to that schedule. I'm gonna try to, but you know me, I never follow a schedule. But anyways, again, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.